1 year ago, Vladimir Putin launched what he called a special military operation. In reality, that was a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The reason this next period is critical is that it will decide how long this war lasts. So how did we get here? The invasion began on February 24th. For months, Russia had been massing troops on Ukraine's border, but most people, including in Ukraine, didn't believe it would actually happen. The morning of the invasion, I was in Kyiv and we woke up to watch Putin speaking. And about 5 minutes later, we started to hear the first explosions.
Vladimir Putin has just addressed the Russian people moments ago, announcing what Putin called the start of a military special operation, in his words, to demilitarize Ukraine.
I mean, judging by those words, this appears to be the worst case scenario.
There was a real sense of shock and panic. Millions of Ukrainians fled west, pouring into Europe. The first few weeks, Russia managed to seize about a quarter of Ukraine's territory. In the first days, it felt like the Russians were going to enter the city. They really reached the edge of Kyiv very quickly. The Russian plan was to topple Ukraine's government within days. But the Kremlin had hugely underestimated Ukraine's resistance.
These air raids are going off around the city every half an hour or so. We're just heading down into a metro station where a lot of residents are now living and spending the night.
The first turning point comes at the start of April. Clear that it lacks the forces to take Kyiv, Russia retreated, abandoning virtually all the territory it had taken in the north. As Russia retreated, the horrors it left behind started to emerge. In the town of Bucha outside Kyiv, there were mass graves of hundreds of murdered civilians. Russia was devastating Mariupol in the south. The besieged city became a symbol of Ukrainian resistance and the barbarity, really, of Russia's war. After over 3 months of siege and heroic defense, Ukrainian troops were forced to surrender. By June, after the retreat from Kyiv, Russia really switched its focus to capturing eastern Ukraine, the Donbas region. It becomes a grueling artillery war, with Russia using its massive advantage in firepower to grind forward. Ukraine was really battling to hold the line. In July, the US for the first time starts supplying Ukraine with HIMARS long-range missile launchers. And these and other Western weapons help to begin to turn the tide. Russia, still pretending it's fighting a limited special operation, starts struggling with shortages of men and munitions, and Ukraine begins to take control of the war. In September, there comes a crucial turning point. Ukraine launched a spectacular counter-offensive in the northeast near Kharkiv. They collapsed Russia's lines and liberated thousands of square miles of territory. Most military analysts say this rout really puts an end to Russia's ability to truly go on the offensive. From this point, Russia is really fighting to just hold what it's already captured.
Считаю необходимым поддержать.
Faced for the first time with the risk of full defeat, Putin declares a partial mobilization, calling up 300,000 men.
Все, кто погиб.
Desperate to seal Russia's war gains, Putin declares the annexation of 4 Ukrainian regions: Zaporizhia, Luhansk, Donetsk and Kherson. But Russia fully controls none of them, and within weeks it will lose the capital of one. In November, Ukraine liberates Kherson as Russian troops are forced to withdraw, losing the only regional capital it captured. By the fall, Russia switches strategy. It launches a massive campaign to destroy Ukraine's energy infrastructure, trying to freeze Ukrainians as winter approaches. The war becomes focused around the city of Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine. Russia is hurling thousands of troops into the battle. After staggering losses, Russia made its first gain in months, capturing the small town of Soledar in January. President Biden agrees to give US heavy tanks to Ukraine.
Today I'm announcing that the United States will be sending 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine.
Clearing the way for Germany and other European countries to do the same for the first time. It's another watershed moment in Western military support. Ukraine has liberated nearly 30,000 square miles of its territory since the invasion. When we were here a year ago, most people believed that Russia would take Kyiv within days. Instead, Ukraine has inflicted colossal losses on Russia. But Vladimir Putin is preparing Russians for a long war, and that's why the next phase of this conflict will be so decisive. It will determine how long this war lasts. Will Ukraine be able to go on the counter-offensive, break Russia's army and liberate its territory and win a true victory? Or will Russia succeed in turning this into a bloody stalemate and a war that could last for years? The stakes couldn't be higher.